Right, good evening, everyone. So, welcome to another episode of the Engineering Leaders podcast series, where we actually bring together engineering leaders from various fields to pick their brain and their experiences on how a young aspiring engineer can succeed and have an exciting career ahead of them. So, today we are joined by Emily, who is actually currently the director for Asia Pacific and China Customer Logistic Team at Lego Group. And as an established leader and an expert in supply chain management, with over 15 years of experience working in high-performing teams in reputable institutions such as Procter and Gamble and Lego Group, Emily seeks to drive high-value creation by collaborating with her customers and stakeholders on supply chain solutions that enable sales, improve service, costs, and cash. On the sidelines, she's actually a career and personal development coach and a mentor to many young mentees who are actually looking towards having their own personal breakthrough in their career without burning out. So she finds purpose and fulfillment in developing the next generation of high-performing leaders. And without further ado, let's welcome Emily here on the show. Welcome, Emily. Emily,
Yeah,
we're really excited
thank
to have
you.
you on this show to share your experience and knowledge.
Yeah, no, thank you for that very generous introduction, Kenny. And I'm happy to be here and also speak to your audience. And I'm actually excited, to the conversation that we will have today.
Awesome. Okay, so Emily, could you share your story and walk us through your journey starting from a chemical engineer to becoming a supply chain leader that you are right now?
Yeah, sure. So maybe just candidly, to begin with, I actually did not imagine I would be an engineer as I am now. I took up chemical engineering because I need a university scholarship back then, Kenny. And that was the only option for me. So I enrolled into an engineering program and, got my degree. Now, I would say getting an engineering degree was actually a good ticket, for me, that allowed me to join manufacturing companies. And that's how I started my supply chain career. Now, believe it or not, my first job is actually with Coca-Cola, and I was tasting Coke every 30 minutes. And that was a fun job for me. I was part of a QA team, and there's that routine of testing Coca-Cola and basically doing the quality test. But I knew that perhaps my strengths are not really, around quality process. So after Coke, I joined P&G, and this is where I experienced a lot more growth in my career. I rotated in different roles, but it was not an easy one to get into P&G. Well, for one, it's a very competitive kind of hiring, and I remember I was the only one, the only female in the batch hired to start up the baby care production line. I was hired in the Philippines. And I knew that I'm not as competitive when it comes to assuming manufacturing roles or technical roles. So I actually need to differentiate myself, and I need to just find a way how I could also be in a way seen. So I raised my hand, and I offered a lot more than what the job description back then was telling me. And I remember during the interview, I was very transparent. I shared what I'm very good at, and how the company can actually make the best use of me. And I took a big risk there because, you never know how that would come across. But one thing I also told myself, I just need to be true to what I want. So with that, I started my career in production planning. So I was planning the line, the output of the line, and the company then saw my potential in supply chain management. So I rotated to different roles after that. I got relocated to Singapore. I've been in Singapore now for 20 years, actually. Wow, time flies. And I managed different business categories, different teams, and also influenced a lot of stakeholders. After PNG, I landed in the Lego Group, which I enjoy now. And I was really glad also that despite that, maybe engineering is not my cup of tea. I said yes anyway and seized every opportunity I could, harvest from that. So that's where I am now.
Awesome. Yeah. Wow, that's been a really, really long journey. And actually I'm very curious because I actually read this book, about this author called Cal Newport, and he actually said that, don't work because of your passion. Okay, always start off with just working and develop the passion from there. Which actually reminds me a little bit about your situation because you didn't start off passionately loving about engineering. Engineer is just a means to an end. But I'm just curious, has that passion actually developed? For you over the years?
Yes, yes. And I would say it is possibly the mindset. And as an engineer, the mindset is really all about solving problems and finding opportunities to continuously improve. And I have embraced that. I have advocated for that. And I saw as well how that engineering mindset that I embraced is actually powerful in terms of contributing to the business. So I think, if any, that was in fact the real transferable competency that allowed me to grow, in my career. And over time, it has become bigger and bigger for me.
Awesome. Yeah. So, Emily, could you share some of the most memorable experiences that happened throughout your long career, that you had with many different institutions previously and now at Lego Group that actually bring
Mm.
you the biggest lessons?
Good question. Um, there's many, but if I have to think one, possibly it is at that point in my career where I was, in fact, assigned to um, do the planning systems integration back then for Gillette. So the company just acquired uh, Gillette as a big brand, and the come from state of the organization is already quite strong in terms of their process. And the problem I have to solve is less of the system, if you ask me, but more about the people. And this is the biggest lesson I took away from that. It is really about how do you influence people towards the same goal? How do you make people at ease, and avoid a situation of conflict? Because you can imagine a company acquiring another company and, them coming together. It's not necessarily a bed of roses. But I would say it is really also all about driving very clear uh, you can say project management, very clear communication with stakeholders. And it's also about winning people and gaining their trust, collaborating effectively so that they are part of the outcome, and it's not like you are directing them to already a result. So that was quite a great experience for me.
Yeah, so I'd love to actually explore a little bit more about your leadership philosophy and culture lah. And of course, as a director for APAC and China, customer logistics at Lego. I believe you are someone who is a huge advocate for high performance of team culture. So, just to build up from the previous point that you actually mentioned about managing people, communicating intentions and missions to them, could you share with the audiences what does a high performing team culture look like to you?
Okay. So I think different people will probably, speak to this topic, but for me, a high-performing team is a team that operates with a shared vision. And because of that, they work collaboratively to achieve the vision or achieve a common goal. I think one important characteristic that I always look for, and it gives me the sense that this is high performing or not, is the level of trust in the team. So if you have high trust in the team, almost always there's a very high commitment to work together, to learn and continuously improve. And that has always been also like the acid test for me. But of course, getting there is never an overnight success. It takes time, and also it takes some level of credibility as a collective, to get to a high trust environment. And one example I could think of is, in fact, my current team. So we aim to be the supplier of choice for our customers. And we know that we are approaching that state if the annual feedback that we get from customers are actually highly rated. The team, works together. They collaborate not only internally but also externally to deliver what we call as best service to our customers. And how we do that is we drive continuous improvement projects. And from there, we demonstrate, how we impact our service to our customers. So example could be, we improve, for example, our order to delivery lead time. So that our products can reach customer shelves much faster, and we avoid any out of stock, because that's always the big noise when it comes to serving our customers.
Yeah, so you actually build up a very effective team, and I believe what this effective and high performing team is to able to drive positive outcome at a very very compressed time and deliver at a very very high quality. So actually, but I was curious, what are some of your personal principles and beliefs when it comes to actually building this team to actually deliver that high quality output?
Yeah, I think in terms of principles and beliefs, I would say three things. So one is, I really believe that the first thing to do for a leader to create a high performing team is to create a vision that everyone in the team can be inspired with, that they can truly believe in. So it's not just the leader believing, but you have the buy-in of the team. And also, it is something that they can relate to, they can follow through. Because having a vision, but it's also too far away, it's not something that people might be able to take action, or even kind of feel that they can achieve that. So that's also important to give it a bit of a reality check. Now, doing that gives a strong sense of purpose. So purpose is very important. And it aligns everyone to, move towards a common goal. So number one would be creating a vision. Second would be as a belief, right? I believe that as a leader, um, we all need to create a safe space for everyone, for them to be their authentic selves. And that actually fosters trust. High trust in the organization always leads to high performance. Um, I believe that everyone in the team offer something, and they bring different points of view. So as a leader, you need to empower that, and allow them to also learn and grow in their own capability. So creating that space or that safe space for them to express themselves and to have a healthy debate of, what needs to be done moving forward is key. I would say, thirdly, I also believe that it's important to communicate very clearly what your expectations are. Um, and when we say high performance, it's also about understanding what is the performance we are look going for, or what is the expectation on performance. So that needs to be clear, as well as being open to feedback. Now, feedback goes both ways. People leader giving feedback to the team, and also giving feedback to the people leader. And what I've learned now, much more now than I did perhaps years ago, it is very, very important to listen more, actively listen more, develop that connection, and really a deeper understanding of people's needs and their intrinsic motivation. So I would say there's still more I can say, but in summary, this would be the three I think that would be top of my mind.
Yeah. And of course, to further add on, are there any top three traits, right, that actually make a good leader?
So it's I would say, just relating to what I just said earlier. Top three traits would be likewise. Number one, being able to set direction. Um, Number two is really having that empathy as a leader, in order to create trust and that safe space that I mentioned about. And third would be, if anything, you know, a leader is a communicator, and not only a communicator to the team, but a communicator to stakeholders. So I think these three for me, again, consistent with what I also see as important for high performance, are the top traits of a leader.
Awesome. Yeah. So, actually, I resonate with a lot of your thoughts as well. So, I actually, talked to many engineering leaders, and they all mentioned quite a similar, like, sentiments as well. I think especially when it comes to really understanding, each and every of their team members, because they are all core pillars and support structures, support for the team. And I think a lot of times we always attribute like a boss employee kind of relationship, but rather it should be a more of a partnership.
Yes.
How can the leader actually inspire the best out of their fellow associates, and of course how can those associates actually bring out the best in the leader? Yeah, I think that is a much more productive way to actually move forward as an effective team also. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks so much for the reminders. I believe actually a lot of leaders need to really hear this. Yeah. So, then of course, what can young engineers, do to actually create more opportunities for themselves to actually move up leadership positions?
Mm.
Of
Yes. That's a great question. So, uh, again, looking back at my journey, there's a lot that I experienced and learned along the way. And maybe the first thing for me to say is, number one is establish your own credibility. Now, how do you do that? The key is really to also be consistent in high performance. And again, we talked about high performance earlier. What I mean by this is consistent in, meeting or exceeding expectations. Um, uh, Credibility can also be established by having really good working relationships, because, not all the time it's easy. Most of the time it is challenging. So it's important that, not only you work collaboratively, but you also work in a supportive way with your colleagues. And within credibility, I would also say pick one or two that's high impact, and drive thought leadership, especially those which are clearly big priorities for the business. This is one way that you can also be visible to the organization. And, if you deliver that impact, that would be high credibility at the end of the day. So one would be establish credibility where you find the opportunity to demonstrate that. Um, Second, I would say, again, in my experience, I never really thought that my career will be dependent on anyone. I was dependent on myself. Um, so I would say be your own advocate. And what do I mean by that? It is you who is the best judge, really, of your performance and also your potential. So you also need to do a good job of, uh, sharing what you are doing. And some people may take this negatively because, some people might say, you don't want to also like promote your own work, right? But I see this with a lot of good intent. And what I mean by that is sometimes people don't know what you are doing and what you are thinking unless you actually create that visibility for yourself. So be your own advocate, and nobody will do that except you. So take the leadership role in that. That's also personal leadership. Be in the driver's seat on that one. Um, Third, I would say be strategic. Uh, and a good start for that is to embrace what I call as a mindset of a systems thinker. Again, trained in engineering, we are trained to solve problems, right? But not only to solve problems, but really to understand the root cause and also the implications, across the different touch points. So one tiny action, especially in the supply chain, impacts the rest of the network. So, one small defect, if you don't take action now, can become bigger actually over time. So, need to be strategic about solving problems and not just firefighting all the time. So, to be future proof, I think we all need to expand our thinking, yeah, to go beyond the now and also think about preventing recurring problems. And from my experience, I think this is also one thing that helps me and to differentiate myself. And when I manage people, and in fact, when I also see through other people's results, this is something that clearly is a differentiator for me. I would say one more, if I may. And this is something I just picked up also this week. We had a panel discussion this week, and there's something about if you really want to move up in leadership position and be in a leadership role, it is very important that you develop very strong acumen in managing business. And you don't need to be like in front of it, but you just need to wear a hat that you truly understand what matters for the business and you use your function to support that. So, be a business partner first and then, a supply chain professional next. So I'm going to borrow that line from what I picked up from this week's panel discussion we had also at work.
Awesome. Yeah, so thanks for sharing for all those nuggets of wisdom. So actually, I would like to perhaps maybe explore a little bit deeper on some of the concepts that you shared. So I think one of the concepts you shared is about credibility in the organizations where you are more visible. So could you share a little bit about what credibility means? Because I think some people would like to build that credibility where they are
Yeah.
seen as an organization whereby, hey, this guy is a problem solver and he's reliable. So perhaps maybe you could share your definition of credibility and how people can actually, practical ways that people can actually build
Yeah.
this credibility.
Yeah. Credibility for me is basically your result. Um, Credibility for me is, when I ask your boss, when I ask your colleague, when I ask someone in the office, they consistently say this about you. Um, so how do we establish our credibility? So I would say first thing is deliver results in a consistent way. Um, and also, I mentioned earlier that another way to create that credibility is also your relationships. How would someone feel when they work with you? And is this a consistent observation about you? And when times are rough and when times are tough, how do you show up? This is also credibility. So I would say there's no book for this, to be honest, but it's really about how you show up and how you build your like just like you, Kenny, you're building your brand, through this podcast. So if I'm to ask somebody who has listened to your podcast and for several episodes, what is it exactly that they pick up from you as your brand, the credibility that you're trying to establish through this podcast? So that goes the same in the workplace. What is it that consistently you demonstrate that develops a reputation or a perception about yourself? This is credibility.
Awesome. And just one more point that actually you mentioned that I found it very interesting is about always being a business partner first, then
Yeah,
so could you share with the audiences what do you actually mean by that? So what I internalize lah is really about being and foremost a intrapreneur. So actually this was a term that I picked up from another engineering leader. So intrapreneur just basically means that within your organization you act as an entrepreneur. You're always very focused on beyond your job scope, not just being an order taker. You are also a designer. You are also someone who actively participates in the betterment of the organization. So it means that you
yeah,
just go to the different departments, you actively suggest ways that you can actually improve the business, and
yeah,
also ideate certain or initiate some campaigns as well as projects to actually move the organization forward, even though it's not within the job scope. Yeah, so
correct.
that is what I took away, but I'm not sure whether that's the same as what you
Yeah,
meant.
I think that would be along those lines. But what I am also trying to say is, in my functional work in the supply chain, it's very easy that we think in silo, meaning that my focus is really just to drive, for example, cost savings. And we do that by, driving improvements, process tools, etc. But is it really what's also needed, and is it supporting the business? So we need to find that balance, and we need to understand what are the trade-offs for that. So for example, if especially during COVID, so we face a lot of constraints in bringing products to the market because of the challenges we've had in logistics, for example. So, if we were just thinking with the mindset that I need to cut costs and save money, I don't think that we are able to really fulfill demand. So, we leaned in first to um, buy perhaps extra inventory. We leaned in first to perhaps, you know, uh, spend a little bit more on logistics costs so that we can be faster. So this is what I mean by think business outcome first before your functional role. At the end of the day, uh, when the business wins and if the business is growing, we all benefit. So it's not just one department thinking these are my KPIs, but it's really all about okay as a whole. If we manage this as our own business, what is the right thing to do?
Awesome. Okay, yeah, so as someone who actually been around the supply chain management industry for many years, I'm just curious, how has the industry changed and evolved over the years, from where you first started in.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, back then, I would say, simpler, point A to point B in moving goods. But now, because we need to plan supply chain contingency, and we also need to really be resilient. So I would say supply chain networks right now are much more complex, which also means that you need to plan in a different way. You need to manage inventory in a different way. What's exciting about supply chain is there's a lot more um, capabilities now, of course, enabled by technology. So now we could have better visibility, for example, of the product flow through data analytics. And there's also a lot of technology now around predictive demand. So with that, it allows us to be much more responsive. So I would say in this day and age, um, capabilities enabled by technology is actually helping the industry to be better. Um, but what remains the same is if you do consider, being in a supply chain role, this industry is definitely not only challenging, but also, you'd be exposed to a lot of problems to solve. So you can imagine it could be high stress, but also equally very fulfilling.
Awesome. Yeah, and of course, how can someone in the supply chain management industry like yourself actually prepare themselves better in the next decade to still remain relevant and highly valued?
Mm, mm, mm. And I'm reminded again of another panel that we did this week on almost similar question. And one thing I've come to terms now would be um, first things first is really to um, stay stay efficient and stay as capable as you can, being a problem solver. That would, in fact, that would be even uh, that would apply before, and that would apply now, and that would apply in the future. So that would be one, to be relevant and future proof. Be better in solving problem solving. Second would be, I would say that again, leveraging also tools and leveraging what we could gain now from data. um, I would encourage anyone who is in the supply chain to actually embrace the digitalization, also transformation. There's a lot to learn now when it comes to different tools in enabling our work. So, gaining experience and knowledge around that would be important. Um, and thirdly, I would say, I think, over time, I also foresee that some of the tasks that we've been doing in the past could actually be supported already by technology. So for me, what I feel we should really dial up are those skills that perhaps would really be a game changer, like eh, design thinking, uh, skills in managing suppliers. So these are, like, you can say, non-technical skills, but they are very, very important. Creativity or creative thinking is very much also in the heart of problem solving. So this is the one that we also need to hone in. um, so just like, I would say, any other function, maybe this would be relevant, and they are also transferable. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Wow. This is a very, very elaborate, breakdown of the industry. And I believe actually, I also spoken to a couple of industries from other places like, marine, uh, even in the marine industry. So actually, I recently spoken to this CIO, okay, like one level below the CEO of a marine digitalization platform company. So he was also mentioning the same thing. It's all about being very flexible, being very adaptable, and really just continuously growing in their skill sets and adapting to the new changes, especially technological changes
Yeah.
in the market. Yeah. So, quite interestingly enough, Emily, I actually had a conversation with you outside, and you actually mentioned that you were, or at least are now, a career coach, and mentor for many young engineers and professionals alike. And actually recently took up a coaching certification and, working towards coaching many young working professionals to unleash their inner potential and personal career breakthroughs. So I'm just curious, what actually inspired you to be a career coach and mentor?
Yes, and I'm getting that question a lot these days. I would say, first thing is, I really, we talk about value creation, right? So I think, all throughout my career, I've been focused on driving value through work. But this time I also want to do more in creating value to others, so to a fellow human being, and impact transformation in their lives. And coaching is one of those modality that I really believe will bring the best in everyone. So even without the certification, so coaching is part of my toolkit as a people leader. But I felt that I could do more even outside of work. So, I went through that not so easy certification process, and I'm still kind of in my toes, actually, to make sure that I up my game when it comes to coaching. But that allowed me to really go a little bit deeper on, the coaching practice and how to do it in a way that is much much more impactful for others. And so far, my joy is really hearing my coachee, share back how our conversation and the plan that we've kind of talked together is really driving great outcomes in their lives. And that to me, more than anything, is really very meaningful, and I find purpose in that. So that keeps me going.
And how does your I'm just curious, how does your coaching process and how you actually bring these mentees through a coaching session? for them to actually find the clarity and breakthrough that they want.
Well, we need to try one, Kenny, so that you can experience it.
Oh, yeah, awesome. Yeah, I
But
would love to. Okay.
but I think in a nutshell, normally I try to understand first what is the person's vision of themselves, what needs to be true in order to realize that. And if the person can do this alone, then we probably will not need a coaching conversation, right? So I'm extra curious, like what is it that is holding this person back? What are the showstoppers, and what are some of those blind spots that the person may not see on his or her own, that I could see as part of the outcome of the dialogue, and help the person also, acknowledge that and see that through. And at the end of the day, you want to move the person to a direction and to action, because all these reflections and insights are great, but even greater if they are translated into action. So that's how I do it. I've oversimplified it, Kenny, but I invite you to experience it with me so that you can maybe tell me if that was a process or not.
Awesome, awesome. I would love to, definitely, because actually I myself, right, I also run like these career assessment sessions, in which a lot of the engineers, I actually invite them for such sessions to see if I can help them with their personal breakthroughs as well, and of course really taking the lessons as well as life experiences for myself, okay, and just pass those down to them, so that they can learn how to stand out and find better career opportunities, uh,
Yeah.
in their workplace. So I'd love to learn from you as well, to hear from a different perspective. Yeah, but just curious, Emily. So when you mentioned about blind spots, yeah,
Mm,
right. I believe a lot of them would have like common struggles, fears, and blind spots that's holding them back. So could you share, what are the more common ones that they tend to, or at least, that holds them back? Is it more towards a personality blind spot, or is it more of like a technical skill set kind of blind spot? And what are your
yeah.
advice for them?
Yeah. Most often it's a mindset. Again, I go back to now most people I encounter now, I would say there's two or three things that I observe. So one is the barrier is their own doubts or self-doubts. Like we always think that maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe, if I do this, this will be the outcome, and maybe it will not be all right. So we are already like processing what might be the outcome ahead of doing it, because we have all these internal talk that we've been accommodating, and it's preventing us to take action. The second that I observe is common, especially for high achievers. There's a tendency to actually uh, overthink. And you can argue the first one I mentioned and this one are possibly cousins. Uh, but overthinking, while it is good, especially as an engineer, we always solve problems, right? Um, it could also lead you to, a negative self-talk. And again, it prevents you from taking action. Um, so these two, I would say, in general, are very common, for those that I have spoken to when it comes to particularly managing their career. Um, and without someone who could kind of see this for them, it's hard for them to actually navigate it through, because sometimes the awareness might be a little bit low, right? When it comes to this, because you're so absorbed with yourself. So you need a support of perhaps another person to see you through and kind of point it out, and also invite you to as well uh, reflect on that and acknowledge that, and then move to action.
Awesome. And do you have any advice for young engineers on what they should actually actively be doing in their work, okay, to actually create more career opportunities for themselves, especially in the supply chain management?
Yeah, yeah. No, I would say I would just go back to what I also mentioned earlier. Um, Especially in the early part of your career, really establish your credibility. So be consistent in demonstrating high performance. And I would also say that stay stay relevant, and always look out for opportunities. Have a foresight about yourself on what is possible. um if I look back at my story, no, my line manager never really kind of told me ahead of time that this is where I'm going. From my experience, it's always about me anticipating and me seeing what is possible for me. And if you do that, you are actually much more in control also of your life, and you'd be also seen as someone who is really accountable. um, and people also see that as really a very positive trait about your own internal leadership in driving your life. um, and always, as well, like I said, think about the value you create. So be a business partner first, like I mentioned earlier, and think about how you could support the business. That gives a lot of also insight on the talent that you can bring to the organization, and the results that you could also deliver.
Yeah, well, it feels like I'm taking career coaching from you now. Yeah, maybe this is like a pseudo session. Yeah, but that was very, very good reminders. And actually that is what a lot of engineering leaders also been telling me. As far as possible, I think a lot of people tend to view jobs as jobs. They don't really take so much or as much ownership as they could have, as a way, like, is maybe their job to them is just a means to get by.
Yeah.
And of course, but I noticed that a lot of engineers who are in the top positions got to where they are today is because they really feel involved and a real stake in the business itself, which means is that they feel that their contributions as well as the value they add to the company means it matters to them. Yeah,
Yeah.
whereas some people, they are very disconnected with how the company is actually doing. Yeah, and actually there's a very different frame. Yeah, I'm not sure whether
Yes.
you agree with that as well. Yeah,
Yeah, very much agree. Yes, yes.
awesome. Yeah, so Emily, do you have any last piece of advice, before we actually wrap up this call, for the audiences out there, who are actually looking to really grow in their career?
Yeah, no, not a big one, because I think we've talked a lot already, but I would say really have a vision of yourself, have a foresight of what would you like your reality to be. And this goes beyond career. and work towards making that real for you. If you want, put together a roadmap, if it helps to make it tangible, and rally people around you to support that. Um, no one will know what you feel and what you think if you are not open as well. So, once you have a clear vision of what you would like, uh, communicate as well, state your intention, and be open about, here's what I would like, and here's, I think, what I can do, and here's the support that I need. Um, and you would be surprised that the people around you would actually look at that, and in whatever ways and means they could do, will support that, as long as you also give back. So this is not all about taking, okay? This is also about giving. And that's why I say earlier, think of the value you bring to the table, support the business, be a business partner first, and then, your functional role next. Uh, I always believe, and again, this is coming from personal experience, that nothing happens, by accident. Everything is intentional, and you should be intentional about your life. So as long as you walk the talk of what you want to do and what you want to happen, you will be supported somehow, somewhere. The universe will connive to make that happen also for you. You just need to believe in yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, the last phrase that you mentioned about the universe, actually banding together to help you, I think was a quote by I saw it. I think I saw that quote before. It's like, how, like, if you really want something, right, the whole universe will actually conspire to help you, which I find it's like the law of attraction. It's like a
Yeah.
metaphysics kind of thing. But I noticed that like it's been repeated like over and over again. It's like the more you give,
Mm,
the luckier you are in life in general. Yeah.
mm.
So hopefully the audiences, actually continue to put in goodwill in your work, and of course, build that. uh,
Yeah, and like I said, nothing happens by accident. And in fact, it triggers me now to think about our encounter, right, Kenny?
mm.
This conversation, this podcast, you'll never know what this opens up to the audience listening. They could be triggered. And again, for those of you who might be needing a little bit more support after this, hearing from me, just feel free to reach out. But everything is for a reason, and we all should believe that. Mm.
Awesome. So, Emily, my last question to you is, where can the audience best reach and connect with you for advice and opportunities?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm also on Instagram. I don't really have a kind of a separate website that people can check me out, but I am easily reached, on LinkedIn. If people want to have a conversation or have follow-up questions around, some of the things that I mentioned, please feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Okay, so as we wrap up this episode of the podcast, Emily, thank you so much for being such an awesome guest to today's show. I felt like this session was like a hour-long kind of like coaching session for myself as well, even though I'm not
Uh-huh.
directly in the engineering space, but good reminders, of what it means to have high level of self-leadership first, okay, before actually leading a team as well.
Yeah.
So with
Yeah.
the values as well as the right behaviors that you act on a consistent basis that leads you to positive outcome. And
Yeah.
hopefully Emily, the audiences, you are inspired by Emily's sharing, and go out there and just keep, do good for the community. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Look forward to that. And thank you, Kenny, for the opportunity.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so see you guys in the next episode.